imagine standing at the venue. The guests are arriving, the music is queued up, the lighting is perfect.
Setting the scene.
Right. And suddenly, your phone buzzes. It's your caterer. And they aren't setting up the food because of, a $500 progress payment slipped your mind 3 weeks ago.
That is just brutal.
It's the ultimate nightmare scenario, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly, the biggest, most expensive day of your life is completely derailed by a single overlooked spreadsheet cell.
It really is. I mean, you're managing this multi-part project with massive financial and emotional stakes. One tiny logistical fracture and the whole house comes down.
Exactly. So today, we are taking a deep dive into the financial anatomy of large-scale events. We are unpacking a comprehensive framework for tracking payments and deposits across multiple vendors.
Which is so incredibly needed.
It really is. Our mission here is to decode this chaos and show you how to build a stress-free, bulletproof payment system. Because whether you are planning a massive wedding, maybe coordinating a corporate retreat, or just looking to seriously level up your own organizational skills, this deep dive is your blueprint.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to actually manage the money, we have to fundamentally rethink how event vendors operate. We need to stop treating this like a retail transaction.
That is the critical first step. I mean, retail is a simple point-of-sale transaction. You swipe a card, you get the item.
Right, it's instant.
Exactly. Event logistics, though, involves entering into an extended service agreement. You are navigating this mandatory 3-tier structure.
The deposit, the progress payment, and the final payment.
Yes. The initial deposit to lock the date, progress payments to fund the preparation, and the final payment right before the event. But the mechanics behind why this structure exists are, well, they're often totally misunderstood.
So let's look at it through the lens of a startup company. Because you aren't just buying a cake or a floral arrangement, are you?
No, not at all.
You are acting as the chief financial officer.
Yeah.
You're managing a complex cash flow and executing these little micro-funding rounds for a dozen mini businesses simultaneously.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, you have to keep all these different external operations afloat to ensure your final product, which is the event itself, actually launches.
That framing really changes everything. You are the centralized hub of funding for an entire ecosystem of contractors. And what's fascinating here is that maintaining a real-time view of these remaining balances isn't just about avoiding late fees.
Right, it's much bigger than that.
It is fundamentally about cash flow predictability for both you and the vendor.
Let's expand on that vendor perspective for a second.
Yeah.
Because why does our payment schedule dictate their performance so drastically?
Well, think about their liquidity. A florist needs your progress payment to actually purchase the specific flowers from their wholesaler.
Oh, right. They don't just have thousands of tulips sitting around in a back room.
Exactly. And a caterer uses that mid-tier payment to secure the seasonal ingredients and, hire the staff for the night.
So when you miss a deadline, you aren't just annoying them.
No, you are actively choking their supply chain. They're compromising their ability to deliver the exact service you hired them for.
So by executing these micro-funding rounds perfectly on time, we're signaling that we're a reliable priority client.
Yes.
And in the hospitality industry, I imagine that guarantees they prioritize our event over the client who makes them send 3 follow-up emails just to get a deposit.
It's a pure leverage dynamic. I mean, event planning is notoriously stressful because people try to manage it emotionally.
Yeah, they look at their bank balance, they think about the looming date, and they just panic.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you implement a structural system for your cash flow, you take the emotion out of the equation. You shift the entire experience from an emotional burden into a controlled, strategic process.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of building that structure. We need to move from the theory of cash flow to building an ultimate centralized command center. We need absolute visibility over every single dollar.
And visibility requires a very specific set of data points. Any centralized tracker must have 6 core columns.
Okay, let's list those out.
Vendor name, service type, total cost, deposit paid, remaining balance, and payment due dates. Those are non-negotiable metrics.
Okay, I want to challenge this a bit, though. Is a manual tracker really the best we can do?
What do you mean?
Well, we have banking apps that automatically categorize our spending. We have sophisticated budgeting software that links directly to our credit cards and just, pulls the data for us seamlessly.
Yeah.
Forcing someone to manually log deposit paid into a spreadsheet feels like telling an air traffic controller to use a paper map instead of radar. Like, why not just automate it all?
It's a fair pushback. Automation is incredibly convenient for passive tracking, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, the manual entry is actually a feature, not a bug.
Really? How so?
It creates intentional psychological friction.
Psychological friction.
Yeah.
You mean forcing us to feel the pain of spending.
Exactly. When an app automatically deducts a payment in the background, you don't truly process it, it's just invisible money.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind.
But when you have to physically enter the payment into your tracker, you're engaging in a process called cognitive offloading.
Cognitive offloading.
Yeah.
Meaning we're forcing our brains to actively acknowledge the financial reality of the project.
Precisely. You're forcing a moment of mental accounting. Seeing the remaining balance drop next to the deposit creates a psychological shift.
You truly understand your burn rate.
Yes, your burn rate and your remaining financial runway. Now, that doesn't mean you have to use a literal 1990s Excel grid to get this benefit.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Right. You can absolutely utilize dedicated digital platforms built specifically for this type of logistical heavy lifting.
Right. Platforms like the Weddizer website.
Yes, exactly. If you go into the business section of the Weddizer platform, you can manage these exact logistics directly through their framework.
Oh, that's incredibly helpful.
It really is. It's designed to handle complex multi-vendor events while still giving you that necessary control over the inputs.
And what I find incredibly valuable about using a specialized platform like Weddizer is the context it provides.
Absolutely.
You're looking at your logistics in the business section, but right alongside those tools, you have access to guidance through articles strictly related to the wedding niche.
It integrates the learning curve directly into the logistical tool.
Exactly. You're getting the how-to right next to the what is. You can read an article explaining, say, the standard markup on seasonal florals while you are inputting your florist's progress payment.
Which really helps you understand the numbers you're actually plugging in.
Right. But regardless of whether you use Weddizer's logistics suite or a highly customized, color-coded Google Sheet, the golden rule remains the same. The tool only works if you update it immediately upon making a payment.
Instant reconciliation, cash, digital transfer, physical check. The moment the money moves, the tracker gets updated.
So the discipline of updating your tracker in real time is the true fail-safe.
It is.
Let's talk about the fail-safes built into this command center. Because logging a payment date into Weddizer or a spreadsheet doesn't guarantee you'll actually look at that specific row on the crucial Tuesday the money is due.
Oh, definitely not. This is where dual calendar alerts become absolute lifesavers. You cannot rely on passively checking the tracker.
So what's the strategy there?
You must set one alert a week before the deadline and a second alert a single day before.
Ah, okay. The 1-week alert is your strategic runway. That's when you move funds from a high-yield savings account into your checking account, or just verify that a transfer has cleared.
Exactly. It gives you the liquidity you need without scrambling.
And the day before alert is your tactical execution. It's the do this right now or the caterer doesn't show up alarm.
It's built-in redundancy, and we have to apply that same rigorous structure to how we handle the paperwork itself.
Like contracts and invoices.
Right. Cloud storage is essential. Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever ecosystem you prefer. But simply tossing signed contracts and receipts into a digital folder labeled wedding stuff is a recipe for disaster.
Oh, I've been so guilty of the stuff folder. You need a strict naming convention.
You do. Every file needs a standardized architecture. Vendor name underscore, payment underscore, date underscore, amount.
So it's basically creating an instantly searchable database tailored for your own brain.
Exactly. If you're disputing a charge with a caterer 2 weeks out from the event, you do not have the time or the emotional bandwidth to open 20 generically named PDFs just to find the right receipt.
Right. Having a file named catering underscore payment underscore October 12 underscore 5000 tells you the entire story before you even click on it. It's like search engine optimization for your own files.
Precisely. It entirely eliminates the friction of retrieval.
Okay, so our command center is fully armed. We have our 6 mandatory columns. We are leveraging the Weddizer's business section for logistics and niche articles. Our dual alerts are active, and our cloud storage is impeccably labeled.
Sounds perfect.
It does, but human psychology is a stubborn thing. Even the best systemic solutions eventually crash into behavioral traps.
They always do. Systems are perfect. The humans running them are not.
So let's transition into those behavioral traps, because understanding the mechanics is really only half the battle. We need to look at the psychological pitfalls that can derail even the best laid plans. And I think the most fatal of these is relying on your memory.
Oh, without a doubt. The human brain is an evolutionary marvel, but it is a terrible hard drive for numerical data under stress.
That is a great way to put it.
When you're balancing 20 active vendor contracts, managing your daily life, and dealing with the emotional weight of a major event, you simply cannot trust your recollection.
Right. Remembering if you paid the photographer's second installment last Tuesday, or if you just thought about paying it while driving to work, it would be completely impossible.
Memory is a huge liability. You just have to document everything.
But here is the second massive trap, and I think it happens because people are intimidated by paperwork, failing to audit the actual contract.
It's a critical error. Contracts are dense, they're filled with legalese, and it's so tempting to just skim them.
For sure.
A very common trap is negotiating a payment plan verbally with a vendor, plugging those verbal dates into your centralized tracker, and then never verifying them against the written agreement.
Oh, wow. Right, so if your tracker says the final balance is due the morning of the event, but the contract explicitly states in the fine print that it's due 30 days prior,
Your tracker is actively sabotaging you.
you are in breach of contract without even realizing it.
Exactly. And that completely destroys the leverage and trust we talked about earlier. Auditing your personal records against the exact contract terms is your ultimate shield against financial disputes.
You must ensure your system reflects the legal reality, not just the casual conversation you had over coffee.
Right.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting to me. The behavioral economics behind minor expenses. We get so hyper-fixated on the $15,000 venue fee or the massive catering bill that we completely blind ourselves to the $50 add-ons.
It is a classic manifestation of the ostrich effect. We literally bury our heads in the sand when it comes to the small leaks.
Why do we do that?
Because managing the big numbers has already exhausted our decision-making capacity. We experience serious decision fatigue.
Yes, you want the band to play an extra 30 minutes. That's an add-on. You need extra chairs because 3 cousins RSVP'd at the last minute. Add on. The cash tips for the valet drivers. Add on.
And they add up so fast.
Unbelievably fast. If you aren't logging those minor expenses into your system instantly, they quietly and completely erode your financial runway.
Because 20 minor expenses of $50 each is suddenly $1,000 in unaccounted burn rate. It's the financial equivalent of a slow leak in a tire. You don't notice it until you're completely flat. Which is exactly why maintaining a budget buffer is absolutely critical.
You need a shock absorber for the budget.
Exactly. But beyond just having a reserve of extra cash, the real defense mechanism against these traps is proactive communication.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
Well, discussing the payment schedule and potential add-on costs with your vendors isn't just polite, it's active risk management.
It's like establishing an agreed-upon audit trail before a single dollar even changes hands.
You're creating alignment, and to maintain that alignment, you need a weekly review of your payment tracker.
Weekly, not monthly.
Monthly, weekly. You sit down, open your centralized system, check your dual alerts, and reconcile your receipts against your bank statements.
It's taking that chief financial officer mindset we talked about earlier and holding a weekly board meeting with yourself. It takes, what, 10 minutes? But it prevents months of ambient anxiety.
That consistency prevents the stress from ever taking root. And during those weekly reviews, you can deploy what might be the most powerful strategic move in event planning.
Which is?
Paying your deposits early.
I want to dig into that because conventionally, we're taught to hold on to our cash as long as possible. Maximize the interest in the savings account, right? Why part with the money a moment before the deadline?
Because top-tier vendors are a scarce resource. The most talented photographers, the most reliable caterers, and the most sought-after venues book up years in advance.
That makes total sense.
Your contract is not secure, and your event is not secure until that money clears their account. Paying early is the ultimate leverage.
It locks in the premium talent and signals that you're an elite, zero-friction client.
Exactly. It shifts you from being just another gig on their calendar to being a priority partnership. It's a proactive rather than reactive approach to event logistics.
So we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We moved past the basics of what a deposit is, and we dissected the leverage dynamics of event cash flow.
We really did.
We built a command center utilizing platforms like Weddizer and strict naming conventions. And we explored the behavioral traps, like the ostrich effect and decision fatigue, that sink even the best budgets. So let's distill this down to the core takeaways for you, the listener.
First, treat your memory as a flawed hard drive. Systemize everything.